Hey again, everybody. So we got another video here. So if you have an LG dryer and it's not heating or it's making a lot of sound, I'm gonna rip this thing totally apart and show you how to diagnose all of that. Okay, so where we start on this dryer is where we start with most dryers. So there's a screw right in this corner and one in this corner. Sometimes there's one in the center here too. Take those out, and then what we're gonna do is push back on the lid, and then you got to kind of wiggle it sometimes, but lift that right off. And then we can get to the insides. At this point, make sure that you have unplugged your machine. And we'll start ripping apart the front here. Now there's little clips. You have to pull the front console up over this metal bracket that it's attached to. But you also have to push in these little tabs when you go along. You'll see what I'm talking about once you get into yours, but it does take a little bit of moving around. But now what I found is this board usually catches on this panel when you're trying to take this out. So it just takes some wiggling. Try not to ram it too much or you might wreck something on the board. But yeah, you just kind of pry it out till you get it so it actually come out far enough. Now on this board, we're just going to disconnect everything. Either take a picture right now just so you can remember where all these connections go. It's pretty straightforward. They pretty much only go one place, but we'll disconnect that. We're also going to undo the wiring from all these clips that are along here. Okay, so now we got the console out of the way. We've moved the wiring a little bit, but some of the clips are behind this guy. So we're going to take this front panel off first. So you're going to have screw there, there, and there. And then 1, 2 down here inside. We'll take those off and that front panel will come off. Okay, so we're going to take off this front panel. So this little clip right here, you got to push down and pull the front panel forward. Now we got to disconnect that door switch. So we just pull it off to the right and pull the whole panel forward, and we can lift that out of the way. Just set it on the side here. Now we got to take off this top bracket here. So the wiring also runs through the back of this thing, so we'll have to undo the screws. One there, one there, one there, and one there. And we can pull this out and disconnect the wiring from it. This is a very easy one. I've already pulled out the top two, so you just lift up on this bracket and it comes out of the little holders that it's sitting in. And then we can move that out of the way. And now we're at the front bulkhead here. Just get this wire out of this clip here and move it out of the way. It's also connected to the light right here. So disconnect that and out of the way. Okay, so we're going to get this bulkhead out of the way. We got these 4 screws right in the front here. Take those out. And it doesn't look like there's any other screws on here. Make sure to disconnect the wire running on the right side here. We'll just lift this up and out. And we'll get that wire as soon as I get this out of the way a little bit. And you just disconnect that, and we can move this panel out of the way. So these are the rollers that are on the back of this panel. They're rolling all right. They're not great, but I think we'll get them cleaned up, and they should be fine. We'll check the shafts once we get them off and make sure that everything's good. But yeah, we'll do that. Just get this out of the way and set it on the machine. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the idler, where the belt wraps around the idler, around the motor, and around the drum. You just got to push it off to the left to get some tension on the belt, and then you can take that belt right off. It's a little hard to show you guys with the camera, but I will do that now. Okay, so now we got a bit of a aerial view here. So what we got is this idler. Just want to show you guys this thing's turning really good, so we don't really need to do too much with it. You can still pop off the little triangle clip on the back and pull the idler off and clean up the shafts if you want, but this thing's turning really good, so I don't even think I'm going to touch it. Yeah, that works great. Back of the motor, I'll test to make sure that it's going to spin properly, and it looks pretty good. Okay, so we're just going to take a look at these rollers. They're spinning pretty good, but they're kind of dirty, so I'm just going to use a little pick here and pick this triangle clip off, which can be a pain in the butt sometimes. I'm trying not to bust them. They are just plastic, and they get pretty brittle because of all the heat and stuff that's in here. But yeah, they do come off without breaking them. And pull this roller off. So I'm going to clean up the shaft just with a rag or something. And then take the rag and run it through the inside of that roller just to get any of the debris and everything out of there. And we'll put it back on and make sure it actually spins like it should. Okay, so we got those roller shafts all cleaned up and everything and put back on. They turn just wonderful now, which is good. We don't have to replace the shafts or nothing like that. So I'm going to take off this little cover here because a lot of stuff gets jammed in behind here in the blower wheel, and that can stop the machine from spinning or can cause a lot of damage to the motor, cause the motor to overheat because it's directly tied right to the motor. It's directly on the shaft. So we'll just clean all the crap out of here with a vacuum and pick out any of the bigger stuff, and yeah, we'll be good. It's something I always do on these big cleanouts. It's a good thing to do to it. Okay, so I wanted to show you a couple things. This heater. So this heater is a little different than a lot of heaters. It's actually a double heater, so it uses a smaller size heater for light heating, and it uses a bigger size heater for bigger heating. It'll also use both heaters at the same time if it needs to do some extra heavy duty heating. So what we want to do is take our meter, and I'll set this up. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, perfect. So I've taken off the center wire here. The center wire is the common part of this system. So connect it to the bottom lead there in the middle. And we're getting about 40 ohms. So we'll go from the bottom to the top. We should get about 20, yep. We'll go from the top to the middle, and you should get about 20. The two 20s obviously will add up to the 40. So yeah, that's all good. What we can do too, just to make sure, is connect your lead to any one of these fittings, connect it to the case, and go from fitting to fitting. You should get OL on everything. There should be no continuity between them. So move back a little further. This is what's commonly referred to as a thermal fuse. So to electrically test these guys, I'm just testing for resistance. So you have to take off one of the wires. So we'll check between that bottom guy there and the top, and it should be around 0, which we are. So that guy is good. That's more common if your machine will still run, but just won't heat at all. A lot of the times it's this guy right here. It's not usually the heater, but cycling, there's that in the back here. Very rarely goes, but I can show you how to test that. So just get one of the leads off there. So these are both going to the same wire here. So we'll go across here and come on. Should get very close to 0, and we're right on 0. So that guy is good too. So if your heater or dryer's not heating, that is what I would test. That's what I'd go to after you check voltage coming out of the wall. Make sure you have 240 volts coming out of the wall. After that, you're going to be down here. It's very, very rarely ever up in the board or the wiring. If you test everything here, then you can start going back from here up to the board, because something's really screwy going on. So after you put the drum back in, give it a couple turns in a clockwise motion. That way you can be sure that the belt's not going to fall off. So when you hook everything back up, put everything back together, you know it's not going to, the belt's not going to jump off and you got to take everything back apart. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I've cleaned off these wheels and they're spinning just wonderful. So we'll spin this around, and what you want to do is just hook the front of the drum onto the little lip here and push the drum up with this panel. It makes it a little easier to get everything into place. So what I do, when I got that in place, I give that drum a little bit of a spin and push the panel in while I'm doing it. That way the front rollers will seat underneath the actual drum, and the whole thing is in place now. But we have these two hanging out where they shouldn't be. So now we can just push this up again. That one's in, that one's in. Push this up a little bit, and these are all in. Make sure you connect the wire down here. It is imperative for the machine to have that plugged in. And you can run in these 4 screws. Don't strip these screws out when you're running them in. You don't have to ram them in there too hard. So a lot of stuff on this drum. All right, so what we're going to do next is put the top pieces on. So we'll get this little bracket. So it has these little tabs here that sits inside of a panel right there. So we'll just hook that into the little slot that's there, and then push it down, hook this into the little slot, and push it down. Now, the wiring will come over. And I probably could have done this even before I put this on, but hook it into there. Hook it into here. Leave this one out. This is for the door switch. And we're good. These are all for the board. And this is for the light. This one actually goes in behind. And you can hook right onto that light. That's good. Throw a couple screws in this panel. So, like I said, there's two up top here. And there's two in the front. If you're not sure exactly where they came out, you can look at the panel. And a lot of the times there'll be a little ring around the hole. You know that a screw came out of there. So these guys go right here. Next we can put on the front panel, the big guy. I'm just gonna wipe out some of this stuff that's in here. May as well make it as clean as we can. So you put that right onto those little tabs there on the bottom. This wire goes in behind the bracket. It sits under like that. We can hook up this door switch. And if we push it back, this little tab here can hold that panel still while we get our other screws. So it'll be 4 across the front there. Seems like a lot of work, but it's really not too bad. I think there might be about 15 screws in total. And the panels all come off pretty easy. All right, so what we're gonna do now is put the console back on. So just like coming out, it can be a pain putting it back in. Okay, so I kind of put in the top part of the board there and then sneak in the bottom. It's not fully in yet, but you want to push it until it sits and it drops into the front panel here. And then push the tops on until they all click into place. And you'll hear them all as they're going along. Now we can do up our wiring. You can do it up to when you have it hanging out a little bit there, but I just find it easier to do it this way. So, like I said, it's pretty much plug and play. Everything kind of goes in a certain spot, and it's pretty easy to tell where it goes. Just make sure that when you get all your wires and everything hooked up, that nothing is coming in contact with the drum. We don't want the drum to rub through wires or anything like that. That's why those holders are kind of needed to hold this wiring from ever touching the drum. So those are all on. Now we got 2 screws that hold this front panel on. Could have just grabbed my screwdriver, but that speeds it up quite a bit doing it that way. Now we can put the top back on, I guess, or we can just leave it off and I can plug it in. It's probably better to put the top on before you plug it in, just so you don't get electrocuted or anything. But I'm going to be keeping my hands out of there. So, okay, that's plugged in. Move that back a little bit. Get a little bit of a better view of the drum there. So, turn it on. I usually just go to a manual cycle, something like speed dry, and make sure that my temperature is on high, just because I want it to actually see how the heaters run and everything. We know it tests good, but I want to make sure it's actually running good. And we'll hit start. All right, so that's it. Everything's running good. It's heating well. Tub's turning like it should. Everything is fantastic. So before I sell this thing, I'm going to put a bunch of wet loads in there just to see, make sure it's actually drying and sensing and all that kind of fun stuff like it should. But yeah, I think we're good. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Let me know in the comment section if you have taken apart your LG and how did it turn out. Thanks for watching. Bye.